Congress passed the Endangered Species Act in 1973. The Endangered Species Act was formed to protect plant and animal species from extinction, while providing a plan to recover the species to a sustainable number. The end goal of the Act is to provide an endangered species with full recovery and delisting them from the endangered species list. Only 1.3% of the species listed have made it to full recovery. The Act is administered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Commerce Department's National Marine Fisheries Service. It protects endangered species from unauthorized taking, possession, transport, and sale. It provides listing of species that are threatened or endangered. It allows for criminal and civil penalties to anyone who violate the Act. It provides protection to habitat that is critical to a species' survival. Federal agencies are required to ensure that any action carried out will not harm endangered species and alter the habitat. Species are listed on the basis of their current threat of extinction. Factors that are considered when listing a species on the endangered list are the destruction and damage of the species' habitat, overuse of the species in scientific, recreational, and commercial purposes, disease that could harm the species. The Endangered Species Act is not without its flaws. The court battles have drained the funds that are meant for the conservation of the endangered species. In 2003, courtroom fees cost two-thirds of the budget. In 1991, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service took part in a two-year court battle. The battle was over the listing of the gnatcatcher on the endangered species list. By listing of the gnatcatcher, real estate developers were not able to develop valuable real estate and took to the courtroom to stop the listing of the gnatcatcher. This has been a common theme throughout the history of the Endangered Species Act. The budget of the Endangered Species Act is small to begin with. In 2005, the U.S. Wildlife Services received $16 million for all listing activities and legal fees. With budgets that size, the Endangered Species Act is not able to accommodate all the species that are able to put on the list and creates a backlog of over 9,000 species in the United States alone. If an endangered species have multiple population segments over the country, the Endangered Species Act allows the area to be disturbed because the entire species is not threatened. The Endangered Species Act doesn't take into account the uncertainty that is involved in protecting habitat. Human-related floods, fire, pollution, and developments all impact the chance of survival.
The Endangered Species Act allows the area to be disturbed because the entire species is not threatened. The Endangered Species Act doesn't take into account the uncertainty that is involved in protecting the habitat. Human-related floods, fire, pollution, developments all impact the chance of survival. 80% of endangered species live on private land. Private landowners are not required to aid in the recovery process of an endangered species, only required to not harm them. Based on these findings, the Endangered Species Act is in need of a revision. The Endangered Species Act should be rewritten to include stronger language that will allow for less courtroom battles and more conservation. The language should include new guidelines for protecting habitats from uncertainty from human interaction, and list landowners to help protect and conserve the habitat by creating programs that fund the landowners' efforts, and needs to protect all segments of species from destruction. The budget of the Endangered Species Act should be increased. The extinction of the species harms the biodiversity of an ecosystem could eventually affect the economy. Educating the public is a key component of the importance of biodiversity need for protection species from extinction.
80% of endangered species live on private land. Private landowners are not required to aid in the recovery process of an endangered species. They are only required not to harm them. Based on these findings, the Endangered Species Act is in need of revision. The Endangered Species Act should be rewritten to include stronger language that will allow for less courtroom battles and more conservation. The new language should include new guidelines for protecting habitats from uncertainty from human interaction, and list landowners to help protect and conserve the habitat by creating programs that fund the landowners' efforts, protect all segments of species from destruction. The budget for the Endangered Species Act should be increased. The extinction of species harms the biodiversity of the ecosystem could eventually affect the economy. Educating the public is a key component on the importance of biodiversity and the need for protection species from extinction.